Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers, and it's time for Comics Revisited, rolling on through with Maxwell's Demons. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is...
Brian Weaver.
Brian Weaver here with us today, doing Comics Revisited. Today we're going to be talking about our very first Vault comic here on the show, Maxwell's Demons. Why Maxwell's Demons? Well, because it was the first Vault comic book I read. Was it the first one you read?
Yes, because you put it in my box. You know what I like, and just you put it in my box.
Threw it in there immediately.
You did.
And that, just haphazardly, just threw it. Just shoved it in.
Yeah.
Twisted it up. Bent it. Anyway, Maxwell's Demons is a book from Vault Comics. It was my introduction and Brian's introduction into Vault Comics, and it literally changed our comic book lives. Vault has been on the rise, doing amazing fantasy sci-fi work, and this is what led me into that love affair. This book is written by Deniz Camp, who won the 2015 Miller World Talent Search Competition. It wound up doing a Starlight story, I believe, in the annual. I have it somewhere. Vittorio Astone on the artwork, and say his name?
Aditya Bidikar?
Aditya Bidikar, one of the absolute best letterers in the industry right now. So I love this book. That was really cool. Obviously, the name Maxwell's Demons refers to the James Clerk Maxwell thought experiment about the demon and thermodynamics and all that stuff. But that's really not that necessary to this story, or is it? Because it's about opening a door, opening a portal.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff packed into this book, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. You love it?
I do.
If you have not read Maxwell's Demons, though, we are going to be spoiling the hell out of it in this video. We're going to be talking about it, spoiling everything about it, and it's one of those books that slowly reveals itself as it goes, and it's such a shock ending and ties everything up together that I highly encourage you to get it right now. Maxwell's Demons at the link down below. Read this book. It's amazing. It's beautiful artwork, great composition, a great story, well thought out. Spoiler warning, we are spoiling Maxwell's Demons in this video. So let's go. Basically, Brian, this book is the spoilers. This book is the life and times of a criminal mastermind. What do you think about that idea and just the basic idea of what the book is? Who Maxwell masks? Because it's about this kid, Maxwell Mask. He's a boy genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'll just go back to when you put it in my box. The way you described it to me is this kid goes into a door in his room, and you can't tell if these are real adventures or not. And the first issue is laid out that way, and so reading them as they came out, it wasn't obvious that this was the life and times of a criminal mastermind.
No.
And one of the great things about it is you read the first issue and it's this kid-like adventure and somewhat kid-like. I mean, it gets pretty deep in the middle of this too, and some really good stuff in there. And then the next issue, thousands or whatever years in the future, and then you realize it is the same character, at the end, because it actually starts with your anchor character is completely different.
I even remember talking to you being like, is this supposed to be Max at the end?
Yeah.
And then it was the glasses, and the glasses represent, they're symbolic of the doors and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
The thing that initially drew me in on this one was the artwork. I flipped through it and I was just amazed when you see the Leviathan. Mm-hmm. The way that Vittorio had rendered that was so amazing. The colors, because he's a colorist as well, right?
Yeah. This
helped launch him into coloring even more books like These Savage Shores and now Canto. Both big independent hits that are fantastic. So artistically it was great, but you're right, man. A big gear shift from issue 1 to issue 2. It's not even like the same comic book. It's completely different. It's got a different vibe. It's got a different style behind the writing, a different style behind the artwork. And then it does tie in at the very end, but what is it? And that's one of the most important moments is the end of Maxwell's Demons number 2 to the rest of it, right?
It is, yeah.
And then in issue 3, we go back to Maxwell as a kid and tell another story of him and this idea, the father-son dynamic and the grief that they share over his mother having died, that really anchors those two stories in, and it makes the second one just feel so crazy. But if you notice what Maxwell's doing at the end, what he says about what he's scared of and all that stuff, and it all ties in together, right? I love it, issue 3 especially. Lots of ideas in that one too.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about before. It's the issue 3, it's going over all these different possible worlds and these things like that look like a bunch of throwaway ideas that you don't want them to throw away. You want to get involved in these too. I mean, they're really brilliant. And when you're talking about Vittorio's art, this was his actual first comic book. Like, I remember I listened to an interview with Deniz, and he found him on something like Society 6 or one of those just kind of artist, preview things, and that's actually how they got together. Was he found him through that, and this also is technically, it's Deniz's first actual comic book too, because like a lot of this, what he had done before was the mini stuff in the annuals and things like that. So this is for this being a first product for the writer and the artist who was doing the colors at the same time. Just, I don't know, it's mind-blowing.
Fantastic stuff. The artwork is great. Issue 3 is basically Max running away from his dad on the anniversary of his mother's death, and there's a lot of drama going on there, and he travels through all the different dimensions and everything. And another thing about the first issue was it the Ravens or whatever they're called?
Yeah.
Like that's such a
Corvus.
Yeah, like once you so issue 3, he's running right. He goes through all these different dimensions. I love that one with the world that's full of books and nothing's quite right and everything's all crazy weird. The layouts change, the lettering changes. It all works together in perfect cohesion, right? But in the first one, the more you read this, and once you get to the end reveal, it makes that first issue so ominous, so just sinister in a way, does it not? When you reread it.
Yeah, when you go back and it's the criminal mastermind, a lot of the things in that just all of a sudden make perfect sense.
Yeah.
The way it was laid out. I mean, it was so solid in that. I mean, that, and then that third issue where, it's the anniversary of the mom's death I know we're going to talk more about the father-son relationship, but, that's where his dad says, if you don't come, it's better that you're not here when I come back.
Yeah.
And then, then he's, there's a bunch of panels at the end. It doesn't look like he's going to be there, and then all of a sudden he appears, holding his dad's hand, and it was like,
it's a powerful moment.
I was like, crap, this is so cool.
It's a powerful moment. And then the fourth issue, there's it's basically a love story with Max, and more than just that, what it is it's an opportunity for Max to really kind of tell not only the woman that he interacts with in that issue, but us as the audience ourselves, where he's been doing, because at this point now he's a young man, right? Probably like college age or something, maybe still in high school, because she mentions them being in class together or something like that.
Yeah.
But him and this woman meet in a graveyard. He's at the grave of his mother, so that is something that's tied in throughout this fear of death, right?
Well, and his dad's passed at this point too.
And his dad has passed. You're right, at this point too. So they have this great discussion, and Max is able to, for the first time ever, it seems, reveal a lot about himself to another person and make that connection. What do you think about issue 4?
With the connection of because one of his motivations, and I know we're going to talk more about that later as well, but that the whole fear of death, and everything like that he's it's not just him saying I'm afraid of death or anything like it. I mean, it's a thorough, overly thought out. From his perspective, I'm saying not not in the comic. I mean, but his explanations for what he's afraid of, how, because the explanation of why barns are red.
That's a great moment.
It seems like an innocuous fact and everything like that, but he takes it, to this ultimate level of the death of all things, and it's definitely one of the most revealing issues in that whole thing.
Absolutely. So. Speaking of revelations, in issue 5, you find out Maxwell's a little bit older. He's in prison. He's in prison because he's killed the Superman figure of this reality, a man named Tomorrow, and he's being interrogated by Tomorrow's lover and a detective, right? Yeah. So he's a detective, and he also just happens to be Tomorrow's lover, right? And the whole issue is done in a 9-panel grid. And if you really pay attention, you'll notice that there's circular shapes, and Maxwell's in some panels and the detectives in other panels. And basically what's going on is they're playing a game of tic-tac-toe. And this is something that Deniz had to point out to me. I would never have noticed this or picked up on it. Because in the book himself, he's playing a game of tic-tac-toe. Yeah. But then the panels do that as well. This book is so experimental. It's so innovative, right? But the big reveal there has been that the entire time, this story is basically like an origin story for a Lex Luthor or a Doctor Doom type thing. So it starts off, you feel kind of sorry story. It's this kid. He's got this abusive father, like mentally abusive, yelling at him. He's a drunk. He's alcoholic.
He hit him too.
Yeah, he hit him. He actually a physically abusive father, and just a terrible place. And then you see a little glimmer of hope, when he meets the woman, right, in issue 4, and then all this stuff. But it all has led to this moment where we revealed this. And one of the things Deniz says that he wanted the book to be about was how people are not the same people they are throughout their entire lives. That not only do we as individuals change, but society's view of us changes. Because one of the things Max does at the end is he's very, very easily does he manipulate the situation into having society kind of respect him and owe him something after the death of tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the reveal at the end and just that structure, that issue?
Oh man, that absolutely love that issue. I mean, I being a longtime comic book fan, love the 9-panel grid, and probably go into a little bit more details on some of those cool things in there. But from listening to an interview with Deniz, or it might have been something he wrote in one of the panel by panel things, is that like the 9-panel grid is overused, you could say, and so he's only going to use it if you can put some, if you can put some intense craft in it and use it for, specific purposes. And there's not a wasted one on that in any of the issues. And this one has like a lot of it. It actually also reminds me of the Watchmen #5, because that's the one where Rorschach it's the symmetric issue where Rorschach is being interrogated by not interrogated, but he's being questioned by the psychologist, and Rorschach ends up having this devastating effect, on the psychologist, and that also plays out in this, with the Tomorrow's Lover and policeman. I mean, because that last page is him in a 9-panel grid that's actually made of the window panes, and the lover is just in the middle pane, even though it's the whole window. He's just in the middle pane, so it's like really confining looking, right in that center of the page, that center panel, and it's just like it's real constricting. And there's other instances of that in that issue where the center panel has further grids in it to give that even more confined space, and there's a lot of grates coming down, and when he goes in and out of the jail cells and stuff like that. It's it's just really gorgeous. And I didn't catch that tic-tac-toe thing either, but I was catching the circles because
you were like, why are they showing
they're saying
the toilet?
something? Yeah, there's a toilet, and I was like, oh, that's a circle.
There's a light bulb.
Kind of neat, and but and then after you told me that, though, I'm going back and I'm looking, and there's scenes where they're like this, you see the X's,
they all end in a
so
stalemate
cool.
till the very end when Max wins.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Great stuff. And Max, of course, is the X, right? So that's the basic gist of the story, the basic idea, and it's told in 5 self-contained individual issues where you could read this book in any order.
Yeah.
You can read it issue 4, 2, 5, 1, 3. That would be interesting. That may be an interesting experiment. Would be reading the book kind of mixed up. It's kind of, I like the way it works that way. He wanted this book to go on for a while, and hopefully one day it could. I would love to see more of this book. But the way that the story is done, right? And then you got Vittorio and Bidikar come in, and they help add to this element that each issue is something special. Each issue is something unique. Each issue is a piece of the whole, and the whole is something that can continue to develop and grow. There's a whole lot about Maxwell's world that we still don't know.
Right.
I want to know more about what happens in the age of issue number 2. I want to know more about how he becomes this crazy warlock, wizard, sorcerer,
in his own pocket of
sci-fi. Like what? He goes straight from he's Lex Luthor in issue 5.
Yeah,
he's like Doctor Doom.
Yeah,
in issue number 2.
Yeah,
or
Doctor Doom's teacher. When
or Doctor
Mark
Doom
Millar did that.
2099. I really thought it was good. What do you think about some of for instance, Vittorio? I think the art is so fantastic, and as important as that 9-panel grid is for the final issue, look at the grids in the other issues, and they all are purposely crafted for that. I love the barn grid in the 4th issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's lots of instances, and I can't remember which. It might have been issue 3, but it was it had a lot of real structured panels,
like hexagonal, like honeycomb looking.
Yeah. It had a lot of those, and then he was on that one planet that had the kind of odd looking alien. I guess they're all kind of odd looking by definition, but It was the one that was speaking really confusedly to him.
Yeah.
And he was having trouble, and like he even said, "I don't follow." And the alien responded, "It was like bad things happen when you do." You know, it's just I thought was really cool. And that was where he missed the main point, where like because he was telling them the story of how their civilization got. You know, they discovered this idea, and he kept asking what the idea was, and he was giving these oblique answers that weren't answering anything. And then he hops in his door back, and then his answer is that all things that have a beginning have an end.
Yeah.
And he missed that whole point, which is one of the central themes of the book. You know, the fear of death and endings and things like that. But then the next one, there was no panel structure, but there were panels, all broken apart, and it had snapshots of different phases of his life because it like had him as a prisoner.
Yeah,
and
it was already in
that,
there.
Yeah, I mean all these clues telling you where all these things were going.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like it was such a beautiful emotional transition the way that worked. It was just like he had it right here, and then boom, it's just like
And he almost had it in issue 4, and then boom,
Yep.
But that was just going to be something that was going to be fleeting. It seemed like, and I would like to know, where does that relationship go?
Yeah.
Like, where does I want to know so much more about
how did that
this
one
world.
end, right?
How did that end? What
end.
happened? Like, and so I love the way that the art completely changes, and Bidikar's lettering does too. The lettering in issue 2 is different than the lettering in issue 1, and it's different than the lettering in issue 5. Subtly, you can tell it's the same cat lettering it, and I just love this cat's work so much.
It's all great, but issue 2, I thought was like just perfect. I don't know. I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but I mean, the newscasts came in different style of balloons, and the narration in some of those newscasts were very similar balloon types, but they were different. The narration was in your typical narration, just solid grids, but they had echoes of the corners, and then like the transmission ones had the pink ones, that were oval, but they had, echoes coming off of them, and then like the way the black hole sword would talk, it had all the almost curry crackle all around the thing,
and didn't it have like a weak tail to it, that kind of like slithered out just a little bit? I love that. Lots of shifting styles for the different characters and things, and it all made sense. It was all really good. He actually did. I recommend Aditya's newsletter. The one that came out after issue 4 and 5, he actually went into some details from each issue about things that he was doing. Nice.
And it's great.
Isn't one of the issues that isn't there like a lettering font that was developed from like a sound wave?
Yes.
Was that issue 3 or was that issue 4? Was it issue 4 when
it was
in issue 4, as he has this connection with this woman, all these like assassins from like other times and realities or worlds or whatever are coming to kill him.
Yeah.
But none of them are successful, right? And there's some really interesting things going on in there.
Oh yeah.
I gotta love it. But the lettering is great. Yeah, but he takes like a sound wave and turns it into a lettering font for one of them or something. There's so much, and like that's just something that they did just because they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And they thought it would add something, because it's not something that they did that people would know that's it. I thought it was they drew a squiggly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that, right? There's a lot of Easter eggs in this, too. You were talking about how there's a lot of stuff that you can see in those flashbacks and those moments in issue 3 where you can see where the story's going. In the very first issue, there's a line where he says, in the mind of a child, like, some orange juice tins can become a ray gun. And that's something Lex Luthor did to escape a prison back in an early issue of Action Comics.
Like in the hundreds or something.
When they do the reveal at the end, they replicate the ongoing battle between Tomorrow and Max as a bunch of images from like Crisis on Infinite Earths or Action Comics, old school stuff like that. Loved all of that bit. I love all these little Easter eggs that are in there. There's a moment, it's in 4, right, where you first hear about the new superhero. Yeah. But it's something that's just, I never even noticed it that first time I read that.
I don't know if I caught that.
Because they're talking. It's in 4 or it's either, maybe it's in 3. But he says, like, no, that's why he leaves. Because he's like, they've got a hero now, so I'm going to go off and travel. Doesn't he? Something like that? Well, man, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's in here. Why don't you talk about what you think about some of the Easter eggs and some things you noticed?
Okay. Yeah, so, one,
yeah, right there.
Go back to...
It's in issue 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I missed that one too. So. Well, that's one thing I actually absolutely love about this comic is I know that there's plenty of things I missed, and I could get to keep going back and and trying to discover new stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredibly dense. I mean, it's only 5 issues, but I can't stress enough how dense this comic is. And the original plan was supposed to be 30 to 35 issues, and I'm ready.
I'm ready
Anytime,
too.
anytime.
It took a while for the book to come out, and so even though it just wrapped up this year, and the trade just released like a month or two ago. It is totally worth revisiting. It's been in my headspace for a couple years now. I just love it, and it's worth revisiting because the more you revisit it, the more you're going to unlock. A lot of symbolism. I didn't even notice the infinity symbols.
Yeah, okay, so that was one, we were talking about that the other day.
When I reread it, though, after you told me, I noticed them all over the place.
Yeah, because in issue 1... it definitely introduces that father-son dynamic. His mom has been passed for at least a couple years by this point, and his dad handles it by drinking and treating his son like a little slave, basically.
Well, he also just can't relate to his son.
And that was one of the most touching parts at the end was because he was struggling with all these emotions too, and he started cursing his own father. He said, "I swear I'm never going to be like him." I'm not getting the dialogue exactly right, but. And then it said, "I swear I'd never be like him." And then he's breaks a bottle, and then he's kind of sitting there with his head in his hands in front of a train track that's in an infinity symbol.
Yeah.
Which then going back on the reread, then you realize Max is a villain. So I mean, it's just like it all kind of it's lots of clues right there.
But
and
he's only a villain at a certain point in the story.
Right.
I guess the point is in other points of the story he's not.
Well, that's true. But
and is he a villain in the future? Like, what exactly is even going on in issue number 2?
So this is that's an interesting point because, he's afraid of death. This is his motivation. So he's trying to solve the problem of death, which is a noble pursuit, right?
Yeah.
However, he's not afraid to kill anything on his path. I mean, issue 2, he kills that guy's assistant because he knows about the place, right? I mean, this guy was one of the most innocent guys you would ever see.
He kills those
in any
dudes
comic
at the end of issue 1.
Yeah.
And I love that moment too. Because once a door has
Yeah.
been opened, it can never be closed. Or
Yeah.
something. And the first, his true loss of innocence, it seems, is when he has to basically destroy his friends in order to survive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then the idea that the Leviathan is him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is a collection of his fears and creating the monster.
Yeah.
And everything. But he also killed the kind of the opening part of issue 3 was him saving Friedrich the Mouse, by the way. Friedrich the Mouse from Snake.
Yeah.
No hesitation. I mean, it's kind of, to me, like, that seems to be what separates villains and heroes from us is the ends justify the means. Do the ends justify the means? So, like, right? I mean, because a lot of our typical superheroes do the non-killing thing, which, if the Batman killed Joker, that would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But it's not, the means aren't, it's not justified. I mean, it doesn't, so
then you get the idea, should Batman kill every murderer?
Right. Yeah.
You get a Punisher thing, then all of a sudden you're killing people that just like run a gambling den or something like that.
Where's the lines? Yeah, the lines going to keep moving.
Do you think the infinity symbol represents, obviously in that moment it represents the cycle of the sons repeating the mistakes of the father, right?
Yes.
But for instance, that symbol is also in that snack that they offer the aliens in issue 2 that's going to tell them their future, right? Or show them the future. And then I can't remember where, but somewhere towards the end you see it again. Like you also see it at the end when he makes the pin. Doesn't he make the pin go in that kind of
yeah. I didn't catch that as but he does. Yeah, that's really
Yeah, wow. I really like it. And another cool thing about the symbolism in the book is the glasses. So the glasses are these very crazy rectangular things. I did this little sketch today because I was just trying to visualize those glasses, right? It's very crude. Whatever. I shared it on Twitter too and tagged Vittorio in it. Like how stupid was that?
Wow.
This guy's gonna be like,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure they'll be nice about it. But glasses are like doors. They wanted it to reflect the look of the doors because when Max opens these portals to another world, they don't look like some kind of crazy Stargate or something. They look like a door, like a rectangular door. And he said that he drew, if you notice, the glasses are colored opaque in a lot of it because we want to never really be able to quite see what's inside of Max until the very, very end. And I don't even know. I mean, it starts early on. It's a terrible. It's a crazy, it's a very sinister book once you know what's going on and you reread it, and it's very sad and tragic. Yeah. Right. Yeah, definitely. What do you think about? So we've already been on some of these themes. We'll maybe switch some things up real quick. Let's talk about these themes real quick because we're getting into them, right? Yeah. We got this father-son relationship, but what's tied in with everything to me is why is Maxwell so afraid of death? Why is he so afraid of tomorrow? And I love that moment because the hero's name is Tomorrow, but he also says he's scared of tomorrow. But what does tomorrow bring? It brings his death. Yes. It brings the inevitable end. It's existential dread. It's blackness. It's darkness. It's not being able to. He wants to say he's got a noble goal like Dr. Doom, but like Dr. Doom, also he'll go well far beyond. Where does this fear come from? Is it related to his mother? Is it related to his father?
I think it is largely related to his mother because obviously in that relationship, that's his father keeps saying it should have been me that went, not you. Because he couldn't live without her, and Max was too young to lose his mother, right? I mean, that's like.
I thought the moment you're talking about, or maybe there's another moment. Doesn't he even say? And it was so cold to reread when he says something like it should have been. He's talking to his wife. He says it should have been me and you. Not me and him.
Yeah, he says that at a later
point,
too.
Man, that's a terrible thing to hear.
Yeah. It should have just been you and me. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. So, I mean, Max is alone. Yeah. Obviously, his toys talk to him. That was, in that thing. So those become his new family, right? Which, by the way, he named all of the toys and the mouse after philosophers. Yes. Too. Like, that was a very good touch.
Yeah, I like that. When he rebuilds the bear... Yeah. And at the end of issue 3, the dad comes in, and
that's in 1.
Is that in 1? Mm-hmm. At the very end.
Yeah, because after he breaks the bottle and he's talking, he talks to the picture, and then he goes into the room, and that's when he tells him. He said, "I love you. I just wish I could tell you, when you're awake."
Yeah. And then the bear the bear's snuggles up on him, and
yeah. Well, the bear raises up to look at him when he's in the room. Too, and then it shows him cuddle back down to the thing. It was like
breaks my heart. Crazy. Every time I read the first issue of Maxwell's Demons, I immediately go and find my cat and snuggle up with Creamsicle.
My hairs are raising a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's some great, powerful moments in this book, man. Yeah. So the mother having died, causing this relationship, causing this feeling of being alone, and then one of the things we get in issue 4 when he's meeting, I cannot remember her name for the life of me. The character's name, but when he meets her and they're having that discussion, you get the idea that he's like that at school. Nobody gets him. Yeah. They think he thinks he's better than them. Yeah. And all that kind of stuff, and maybe he actually does kind of think that. And I don't know.
I think he has recognized that he's the smartest person in the room at all times.
He knows that from the beginning, right?
Yeah. And I mean, when she walks up to him, he's reciting. Something like some kind of scientific stuff in a poem form because some scientist did that.
Yeah, so he's like, it's the only poem I know, and my mom liked poems.
Yeah, and if that's how you relate to people, that you're not gonna, not a lot of people do that.
Yeah, and they have some really, they get to know each other pretty quickly, and they have some really dark conversation that comes out of that.
Very dark. Yeah,
I love the barn bit, all that stuff. It's so fantastic, so fantastic. So he's wrestling with fear of the unknown, wrestling with death. And all of this you think stems from that, and just the fact he's alone, and he maybe is he seeking approval? Does he want people to love and respect him because he solves things, or does he just have a legitimate need to fix things because he couldn't fix his mom?
Couldn't deal with the loss of his mother. Yeah, I think because she's gone. Right?
That's a Dr. Doom thing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to touch real quick. This thought I had I had to go back and look what Maxwell's demon was, the thought experiment, because I remember James Clerk Maxwell as being the father of electromagnetism, and I couldn't remember. I remember hearing about Maxwell's demon, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was. So I did go back and look it up, and then I remembered why I did learn about it, because I wrote a paper on the second law of thermodynamics in college, engineering major, and it has to do with the second law of thermodynamics, which one of the corollaries of the second law of thermodynamics is that they call it the heat death of the universe, because effectively the second law of thermodynamics is is in a thermally isolated system, the amount of available energy is going to go down, which is represented by entropy. Entropy increasing means your available energy and work goes down. So eventually, all of what we have will eventually, obviously, millions of years, but they call it the heat death of the universe, which made me think and this thought experiment is meant to disprove it, because you wouldn't like this to be a scientific law. I mean, because this is a scientific law. And there's lots of evidence behind it. I mean, it's a real thing.
And the experiment is the idea that there's a demon in there that can open up a door and allow one single molecule in.
Which, the door thing too. When I read it, I was like, oh, doors, more doors. Right?
Yeah,
there's
doors
all throughout
all over the place.
So, but yeah, I just found that. I'm not sure if that connection was part of it, but I just found.
But that makes a lot of sense, because it's not just the death of individuals, the death of humanity or anything. It's the death of everything.
It's the actual end.
Yeah, and that's what he's trying to stop. And then that moment where he's like, I'm scared of tomorrow, and you see those mountains of eyes and all kinds of craziness, and just, it's like he's seen something.
Yes.
And it's just, what is it? And what's he doing in the tower they call the mass in issue 2? And it's like in and out of, there's time, they phase it out at the very end. He goes away somewhere else because they found him.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And people just make this grand trek. And it takes them, I love the family in issue 2, and we're just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
The comic. Actually, yeah, that's what I was going to say. This video is designed to be just like the comic. You could watch it starting at, minute 15.
Chunk it up.
Anyway, I love, I don't even remember what I was going to say anymore. Oh, yeah, the people that lived their entire life, fell in love, had kids, and their descendants are continuing down this path, not even knowing why. Just
it was a generational thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Love it. Love this book so much. It's so amazing. Why is this book so important? First of all, it helped establish Vault, right? Yeah. It made a lot of waves. This was the first one that I saw, first one I heard. Now, they had already had some books out before. Heathen was one of them for sure, and Heathen is now being made into a movie. But Maxwell's Demons was when I really first started paying attention to them, and it launched the careers of Deniz Camp, Vittorio Astone, who's now coloring books, like we said, Canto, These Savage Shores. Bidikar is lettering These Savage Shores. He's lettering, I think he's the letterer on Coffin Bound. Coming from, he's all over the place.
Yeah, he's all over the place. He's a hard worker. He's all over.
Yeah, and absolutely brilliant creators, and I cannot wait to see more. I would love to see more Maxwell's Demons, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would definitely love to see more Maxwell's Demons. I mean, that one of the things I like about Vault is, I've listened to interviews with Adrian and Damien too, and seen some of the stuff. They definitely put a lot of thought into, the stories they're going to publish.
Yeah.
And it shows, because their products are all pretty solid. And I've always been a little bit more of a sci-fi fan than a fantasy fan, but I like both. And so it's, this might be the closest one to a superhero.
Yeah.
Than of any of them, right? And yeah, it's a great publishing company, because the comics are actually they're well printed. Because Tim Daniel, I can't remember his title, but he does a lot of puts a lot of thought into the physical product you're going to be putting in your hands.
Yeah.
Their trades are high quality too. So
and Vault comics smell the best. They do. They really do. Give it a sniff.
It does.
Oh, it does. The race where the alien, the reflection is their god.
Yeah.
There's so many cool, wild ideas in here. Not just in issue 3 like we were talking about, but there's so many ideas throughout here. Just in the radio frequency in issue 2 that a writer could go 60 issues with.
Yeah.
And it's a throwaway line, basically, to Deniz Camp and company. I freaking love this. I want to see more from Deniz Camp. He's going to hopefully have more coming out soon. He's an amazing writer. Astone is an amazing colorist. Bidikar is an amazing letterer. Yeah. I'm head over heels in this book. Anything else you wanted to add, Brian, before we wrap up here?
Trying to think.
Brian's very, very much afraid that we're going to leave something out.
Yeah.
And I told him that's just going to happen.
It is going to happen. Okay, so there's one thing I thought it was pretty cool on my last reread. This was my third one. But issue 4 starts off in a cemetery. He's visiting his mom's grave, and the cemetery is called Sisyphus Hills, and it's engraved on a big rock, kind of like what
And
Sisyphus
that's the myth. Endlessly taking the rock up the hill.
Yeah, that was his punishment. He would take it up the hill and it would roll back down. And it was a metaphor for endless struggle, which also in that comic is like Robbie was saying, like you had all these, alien bounty hunters, coming from...
Which had some really crazy backstory that Dennis shared on Twitter after the book concluded.
Oh, man. I missed
There's
that.
like a whole bio he wrote out on every single one of them. It's like how much detail for a character that's in there for a panel and then gone.
How do you hunt something down on Twitter? That's hard to do, isn't it?
I think you can tweet out, you can like type, if you typed in like Deniz Camp, Maxwell's Demons, maybe you'll find, I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. I would like
he does
to see
tweet
that,
a lot because he makes some really punny tweets that
Yes, he
just
does.
crack
Yes, he
me
does.
up.
And some of that humor is in issue 2.
Yeah.
I will point out with the black hole sword saying, "What am I dense?"
Yeah, right.
The
photonies.
Yep. Yeah.
They can't decide if they need to try them as waves or particles.
Right. Yep. Yeah. The humor in that is awesome.
Yeah.
The humor in that is awesome. I kind of lost my thread that I was.
You were talking about Sisyphus stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, but those things, to me, like what I felt like I got from that was that a lot of the big 2 superhero comics, have these never-ending events. It's a monthly cycle. They achieve these great accomplishments every 3 or 4 months, and then they're off to the next thing, which is, it just does seem like an endless struggle. And that was kind of one of the things I thought I was connecting with those things. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's
Isn't that something he mentions in issue 5, which has a lot to do with game theory? Dennis says that he wrote an entire book on game theory first. No, he read an entire book on game theory, and that's something he says. He's like, that the board controls the movements of the players, right?
Yeah, you're trapped by the grid.
Yeah, and Maxwell's like, we needed to think beyond that.
Yeah.
I needed to break out of this because this was going to be just an endless struggle between Lex Luthor and Superman. So that ties in directly into that idea. That made...
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Right? See how good this book is? We're just trying to figure it out. Anyway.
Do people like watching that? I don't know.
I hope so.
Okay.
If you haven't read Maxwell's Demons and you've made it this far in the video, I'm sorry for spoiling it for you, but I think you'll still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Yes. Absolutely love it. It's available in trade paperback. We got a link down below from Vault Comics. Seriously, pretty much anything from Vault Comics is guaranteed to be fire if you're a fan of the channel. You know how we feel about Vault Comics. And Deniz Camp, Vittorio Astone, Aditya Bidikar, fantastic on this book, Maxwell's Demons. Final thoughts, Brian.
Okay, my final thought is I'm going to go back to our importance thing. One of the things that this comic does for me is it reinforces why, for me, comics is my favorite form of storytelling.
Okay.
Because of the you have the blend of the physical or the visual, and the dialogue. You have dialogue on there, and then you got you got visual art that it's on a page, right? So when you open the page, your eye's gonna see pretty much most of it, when you first open it. So like, a good crew knows this, right? And so these things are planned out and thought out. So in this comic, nothing is left to chance. Like one thing about good art and things like that was a decision made on every piece of it. Can you look at something and see like they made a decision for this? This wasn't like just, I had to meet this deadline or anything like that. This has that, and it keeps me hopeful, in as being a longtime comic fan that we're gonna keep getting these great comics because this I've been reading since pretty consistently since 1982, which is older than some of these people creating comics now.
Yeah.
and they're getting it. I mean, they've got all this craft that they've learned, and they're applying it, and they're trying it in new and novel ways, and it's just it's incredibly inspiring. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, innovation, experimentation, and an unabashed love for comic books. That's exactly what you get from Maxwell's Demons.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if you love comic books, you owe it to yourself to read Maxwell's Demons.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Hopefully by this point you've already read it. Hopefully we can all have a nice discussion. So let us know in the comments down below any little things, any symbolism, any themes, anything you picked up that we didn't talk about, or if you want to elaborate or discuss some of the stuff we did talk about, let us know in the comments down below. Let's keep this conversation going. about Maxwell's demons, and hopefully we can keep Maxwell's demons going. Adrian, Damien, if you're watching this video, come on, let's make it happen. Let's get it.
We are ready.
Yeah, I'll buy 5 copies each. Brian will buy 8, so there's 13 copies right there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good number.
Yeah, I like it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Be sure to join us next week for Comics Revisited with me and Brooks, talking about Batman the Killing Joke. Yes, because there's a Joker movie right around the corner that I hear takes a lot from the Killing Joke, but also they said it takes nothing from the comic books. However, we're going to be talking about the Killing Joke next week here on Comics Revisited. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. This has been
Brian Weaver.
We are PCP. Thank you for joining the Army. You can do it actually officially over at the PCP Army, the official Facebook Pop Culture Philosophers group. And you can join us over at patreon.com/PCP to help support this channel and get more videos and content like this. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. Kramer. All right.
What's up with that pause? That was a long pause.
What pause?
At the end.
I do that because it makes the person I'm with uncomfortable.
It did. It totally worked. So you're going to have to include that where I'm just like going like this.
Maybe, maybe not.
Look over at you.